You have one precious life. How will you make your money work for you? It's time for Sage Money Conversations, where your financial happiness and confidence are always the subject. Here's your host, certified financial planner, Barbara Norman.
Hello and welcome to Sage Money Conversations. Today we are fortunate enough to have John Henberger on the line with us. John has built several businesses and exited those businesses, and he works in that mid-market up to about $20 million. And now John works at helping others sell their businesses. He's written a book, Making Your Business More Saleable, and he's come up with a process called IntelligentExit. So John, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Barbara. Doing just fine.
So John, tell us, what of the businesses you've helped to sell, what's one of your more favorite businesses that you've sold?
Well, there's many, mostly because we were able to help the business owner achieve their objectives, and they vary. But however, so often some do not choose to go back and make their business more valuable, if you will. And one of my favorite ones is one of our clients who was working with us. They had about a $65 million when we sold it business, not in value, but in revenues. Mm-hmm. And what happened is about 3 years prior, they weren't happy with the results. And this was with another company who we later bought or purchased. And so they went and spent some time building the value of their business, much like a private equity company investor would buy a business and build its value. This same thing can be done by business owners. And I'd love to see some of all the hard work that business owners do in developing their business, and love to see them get the full appreciation of their value.
So if someone's thinking about selling a business, John, like I'm done, I'm out of this thing, when should they call you?
They should call me about somewhere in the 3 to 5 year time frame. Wow. Prior to when they plan to exit their business. And that's why we developed IntelligentExit. It's a process that we use that's logical, that's repeatable, and we've used it many, many times, both in segments and its entirety. And those phases are discovery, which is trying to figure out what's this thing all about. Secondly is develop an exit strategy, which includes both your personal situation and assets as well as your business. Third is if there's a gap between what you have and what you need to exit, we go through a value building phase. But we also get with our owners and take a look at the risk factors of their business, which sometimes cause, say, investors to have concerns, and they really don't pay the full value that you as the owner probably deserve. So we try and mitigate those risk factors. And then we go through the transaction, and we also help our client with good folks like Barbara to be able to start something new, whether that's starting it, whether it's retirement, whether it's starting another business, or whether there's charitable gifting involved.
So you mentioned two kind of really intriguing things for me. One was, what are the gaps? And the second is, what are the risk factors? So give me an example of what a gap would look like. What does that mean?
Okay, so a gap is the owner has a desire to leave the business with X dollars. And don't forget that these business owners will no longer have income, nor will they have some of the benefits of the business, such as medical insurance. They have to pay that on their own going forward. So a gap is what you have today and what you think you need to leave the business.
Okay, so that'd be a gap in their personal. Are you also looking for like gaps in the business? Is there?
Yeah, so good question. When a business owner has personal situation, you can't do a lot to change that. You can't go to your financial advisor and say, hey, increase the value of my wealth that I have with you by X amount of dollars. They can, but you don't have much control over the markets and life. So the gap is really the value of the business. Mm-hmm. So when you combine that with personal assets, that's the total amount of money that the seller or owner of the business has.
Okay. And risk factors. What is a risk factor? So what are
risk factor would be, for example, if you're a business owner and you're making a lot of money, and but the investor can't figure out how. You don't have a path. So you have no strategic planning, you don't do forecasting, and you don't compare results year to year, month to month, and so on. So the investor will say, and I'll start calling them buyers, the buyers of the business will decide not to pay as much until they can figure that out. So there may end up being something like an earnout and the like. And of course, I don't personally like earnouts, but sometimes they're a necessary evil. But if you have a business that's well prepared and you mitigate a risk factor like the one I just described, then you're going to get a more full value for your business. Another risk factor would be you're too central as a business owner to the business. You're making sure that your employees are under a tight leash and you control every minute, as opposed to delegating to, say, key managers how to run the business for you. And so those are just two risk factors that need to be addressed at some point in order to be able to sell the business for maximum value.
So I'm hearing two things. One, they got to kind of open the curtains and show everything that's going on. Is that a risk to a business owner who's wanting to sell? I mean, do they want to give up that information? I guess they have to, but that's hard.
Well, if you prepare for it, you don't have to give it up unless you start to develop a relationship with the investor who makes an offer that could be a binding offer. And so you could sell to them and you build trust with them. And then you'll be able to, with non-disclosure agreements, be able to provide the investor, the data that they need in order to make a decision.
Well, you bring up another good point, and that's if the business owner has all the goodwill. If my client's relationship is with me, are they going to transition over to the new owner? And what I'm hearing you saying is you're trying to get that owner to back off early on. That ought to be an interesting process. Tell me about that.
It is, and that's why we say it takes 3 to 5 years, because you want to develop a succession plan of your management team, so that when you leave, and you may not leave, you may want to stay for a period of time, but there needs to be some sort of succession plan that your managers can replace the owner who may or not have been wanting to be in control of everything. So if you can release some of that control and still get the same results, then the buyer is going to say, I can do this, and they will.
Nice. I think one of the concerns that I would have is if I build a business and these employees they become like family to me, and you want to make sure that they're treated well and that they've got a job after you leave. I mean, is there a way to structure that into the business so that the employees don't lose their jobs? It's your baby. How do you protect that after you're gone?
That's absolutely true. Probably one of the biggest factors that business owners have is related to their concern for their employees. You were right. They look at them as family. And I think that's really important that you make that one of the exit strategy requirements, because if you feel that way, you want to make sure. And there's lots of professionals that can help you put your strategy together to protect your employees. We say there are 7 exit types, and I'm going to try and remember them all.
Okay.
But, number 1 is you can do an IPO, which we don't do as our firm. Number 2 is you can
what's an IPO?
What's that?
It's an IPO.
That's what you do when you go to market and you sell stock in your company and the public buys it.
Got it. Initial public offering. Cool.
Yeah. And, one of the problems we have as professionals is we tend to use acronyms, and it makes it tough. I remember I gave a speech, our company gave a speech to a bunch of JPL folks, and we started using acronyms, and this was in the software business. And we said at the end, not even a rocket scientist can understand this. And a hand went up, and that person said, I'm a rocket scientist. I understand a damn thing you said. There's all these acronyms. So forgive me for that.
Okay.
Forgive me for that.
That's okay. Okay, I sell it. It goes to market. What's the second one?
Oh, so the third one is a full sale. So you can do a partial sale or a full sale. Partial sales where you as a business owner stays on, let's say roughly a 20 to 40% ownership you retain, and you continue to build the business. And then in 3 to 5 to 7 years, the business is probably going to be sold again by a future company, to a future company, such a much larger company, because the business is worth more. And then the other exit types are internal exit types. So that could be an ESOP, which Vistage Institute is heavily involved in. Here locally in San Diego, a great resource. You could sell it to your family and transition that.
Let's not gloss over ESOP, because I think that's one of the best strategies out there.
It's a great strategy.
That's where you sell to your employees and you actually have some tax preferred ways of getting out. So I wish more people would do ESOPs. Okay.
It's something really to look at. As a matter of fact, the several that we've done with our clients have sold their interest in tranches, or in other words, percentages of the business. So it's not an all or nothing thing. So they might sell 1 year, maybe 20% to the employees. And it's a great way to grow the business because the employees feel more part of it. And then secondly, you might, in a year or two or less, sell another tranche to the employees until you sell 100% and you're out. So it's a great deal. There's tons of tax benefits to it, so that maybe the value of the business, because the value is dictated by the IRS, then you're versus say a value that you might get when you sell it to a third party, which might be higher. But with the tax benefits, it very often comes in nearly the same. So it's a nice plan for a business owner to exit.
It's a really great strategy. I love that. Okay.
Yep.
So can family members also do ESOP as an employee stock ownership?
Yeah, family members can be part of it, or so family members would just be, I don't want to say it quite this way, but another member. And I don't know, that's a Vistage question, if they could be in a little bit more control or not as owners. So that's something you take up with a Vistage organization and do that kind of planning. So
we'll have to look at that. Okay. Next kind of sale
is sale to family. You may want your children to inherit the business, although I would be careful. My partner, Leo, went to Las Vegas. There was a very large travel agency, and the father wanted his son to inherit it. Mm-hmm. And in the course of the meeting, the father told Leo, and this is my son, and I want him to inherit the business. And the son said, I don't want it. So before you get too far into it, you better make sure that you give a little bit of support from the family who may want to be part of it. And most of the time they do. There's lots of second and third generation family businesses that are out there, although they usually don't go much beyond the third generation for a variety of reasons.
That's what I heard. I guess, why would that be? You'd have to find 3-4 generations of people who are interested in it first.
You get someone like a Michelle Zelnick who calls himself a business therapist, and you kind of work out those kinds of things. And then another option is selling the business to management in an MBO type program. And again, these are all planning things. We bring professionals in to help us. We don't do all these things, but we do help with the architecture of the planning so that there is a repeatable process. And we've got good people who we've met over the years. I've been doing this particular part of my business since 2002. And then the last one is charitable gifting. And Barbara, do you know a good financial planner that can help with that?
This is a wonderful strategy. And actually, my dad did a charitable gift strategy when he sold his business. He did it for the Catholic Church, and he got a guaranteed lifetime income. He didn't have to pay a lot of the taxes on the sale of the business. I think charitable gift planning, again, another strategy that I wish more people would look at, because the charity benefits, the business owner benefits, the IRS gets disinherited. It's wonderful.
No comment there on the last comment. But I do agree that it is something, because if you want some control in your life, charitable gifting may be a very good one. And there's a lot of good causes in San Diego that are wonderful, including your church, programs for the homeless. There's lots of different programs like the San Diego Foundation, for example, has you can explore. But oftentimes, charitable gifting is combined with another exit strategy. Mm-hmm. So it may be a sale, a partial sale. It may be even the ESOP. Some of the funds may go to that. So it's usually a combination kind of thing.
Wow. There's so many opportunities out there. I never thought about all of this. This is great.
Well, that's all I do is think about this kind of stuff.
I love it. So, John, you've built a bunch of businesses. You've got this sweet, adorable little granddaughter. If you were going to give your granddaughter advice about building a business, what would that be?
I'm not sure she'd understand me.
Down
She's
the road.
talking, and I don't understand everything she says either.
If you were mentoring this girl as she grows through life, how would you tell her?
Well, probably what I would tell her is it's probably one of the most rewarding things to do is to own a business. It is a wonderful thing, whether that's a one-person business or whether you have 50 employees and they're all making more than 100,000 a year kind of business or bigger. I think building a business is truly a treasure in one's life and something you can build a real legacy for yourself and your family.
That is so well said. I think too, yes, building a business is one of the most rewarding things that we can do in life. We have control of our destiny. We see the aches and pains, but we also get the huge rewards when we see people benefiting from it. So,
Yep.
Good.
No doubt.
This has been really amazing. I've enjoyed this conversation. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yes. I just want to remind everybody that I've written this, I call it a guide, and Barbara teased me because I started to write a book and she said, "Oh, but you ended up with the Cliff Notes," which I thought was hilarious and so true. But I really think you should start your planning process. And our planning process starts with discovery, what we call discovery phase. And that's where you learn about all these things. And you may say, "I want to give it to my kids," but you may say, maybe I'd rather sell it 100% and do that kind of passing on the wealth of the family via another means. So I think you should start right away, understanding the process, and then developing an exit strategy, what's going to be best for you.
I like that. And that's that 30-page book, which I jokingly call your Cliff Notes because
Yes.
It's beautifully succinct, but a 30-page book, how to make your business more saleable. And then, John, you also have the IntelligentExit roadmap, if you will. And I know that you're willing to share that. So we're going to put a link to both of those in this podcast so people can find you and access and kind of start thinking about that if they have a business.
Great. Barbara, absolutely true. I love being in business. It got a bit much for me when we had a lot of employees. I kind of wondered, am I working for the business or am I working for my employees? Now, that's a little bit negative on my part, but then again, it was also a time of a recession, so it gets a little bit tough. But what I do find, by the way, is many of the business owners over the years that have started the process actually stop because they build the value and they start having more fun in the business and they decide not to sell. And that's okay with us.
Yeah.
We encourage that. And if that's what happens with in your own personal campaign to increase the wealth of your business, we're 100% for it.
Oh, I love that. So they actually think they're going to sell the business, but by the time you get in there and start building it, they decide not to.
Well, it's nice because so many of the people that we bring in, whether it's a business strategist or whether you join a forum of other business owners where you have people you can talk to every day that are like you and then aren't your employees, because it's very difficult to discuss things like salary, income problems with your own employees. Sometimes having a forum of other business owners is good. As a matter of fact, I used to enjoy going to an industry group called the Association of High Technology Distribution, and it was manufacturers and distributors, and the distributors would get together in non-competing areas, and we talked to each other about, how do we compensate our employees? It's really a good way to grow your business is by being part of a forum like that. And there's several out there, such as Renaissance Executive Forums, or maybe Vistage, those kind of places. It's worth looking into.
Yeah, they are wonderful organizations. I've been part of Vistage as well, and I just love how we can all get together and share some thoughts.
You bet.
Because you don't want to air your problems to your employees. You don't want to air it at home. So we're better than business people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we just presented this whole concept to 13 CEOs in one of the executive forums. Got a great result. Tons of questions. I started out with a bunch of questions to ask and didn't ask a single one of them.
That's funny.
The panelists that we had.
So I'm curious, what were they asking? What were their concerns?
Oh, some were issues related to their business, and others asked a little more generic ones because they knew other members would be interested to know. And so the questions really relate to what's the process like, and they particularly focused on what I would call the transaction process, but there were tons of questions about marketing too, because you've got to position your company not only when you're building value, but you got to position your company for a sale. And there's some very unique ideas out there on how to position your business best for a sale. And then, of course, HR is always a big issue. So we had an HR person named Susie Japs, who is an HR strategist, and she helps with, she does do some recruiting, but mostly very specific to her clients, but it's more strategy in how you develop a succession plan for your company. So we had lots of questions there related to that as well. And my partner, Leo, was the panelist on the investment banking side. So he was great. He's always great.
Yeah, he is great. Any other thoughts?
No, that's it, Barbara. Thanks for the time and letting me do this. I really appreciate it.
Well, I know how passionate you are about businesses, and I've seen people that you work with and how delighted they are to have you on their team, and just the process that goes through it, the happiness that comes out the other side.
Hopefully that's the result. We sure we aim to please.
We aim to please. Well, thank you so much. And if anybody wants to get hold of John, please look in the link for his information. And John, thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Barbara.
Advisory services are offered through Barbara J. Norman, LLC, an investment advisor in the states of California and Texas. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell, nor an offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of California, or where otherwise legally permitted. All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decisions. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to be complete analysis of the materials discussed. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of SagePath Solutions and are subject to change without notice.